The other thing that I really wanted to talk about today is what's going on with Zillow. I talked about it a little bit yesterday on the team meeting. And I think that there's some really interesting stuff that's been going on with Zillow within the past couple of days that I think is just items that we really need to take a look at, right? If you remember, and what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pull up a couple articles. I want to pull up a couple things that I just want to show you, so you guys get a little bit of a chance to see what's happening with Zillow in the market. Give me one sec. I'm going to go ahead and pop open my desktop here. So first things first, guys, when we were looking at what Zillow was doing, if you guys remember, Zillow launched their iBuyer program not this year, right? It had already been in effect in 2019. Zillow had already been purchasing properties and putting them on the market. And one of the things that's really interesting about that, so if you look at this article from CNN, this was written back in February, so right before the pandemic, right? So Zillow is losing millions on selling homes, but its risk-taking CEO isn't working. This was the iBuyer market. They launched it in April of 2018, right? They launched what we call Zillow offers that would purchase homes before selling, do any necessary repairs before turning around to sell the house itself. Now, what does that look like, right? When we take a look at that and them starting that process in 2018, what I'm really reminiscent of is Zillow being very akin to almost like an institutional investor that's flipping houses, right? So they got into the market in 2018 as an iBuyer. They started primarily in Phoenix, Arizona, and they did expand here. In fact, we saw them buying more homes in the Inland Empire. We actually started following a little bit about that, right? But what they found, and it's really funny because the CEO at the time, he gave a really interesting interview. What he said was this, and if you recall articles from about maybe 2016, 2017, when people asked Zillow what their plan was, they said things like, we're not gonna become a brokerage. We're not getting into the real estate industry. We're here to support the real estate agents, right? That's what they were talking about back then. And then they let go of their CEO, and Rich Barton, one of the founders, stepped back, their CEO kind of stepped back up to the plate, and he gave a really interesting interview. In that interview, he said that Zillow was kind of like a baby elephant. He said it's the baby elephant that you invited to the potluck. And this baby elephant brought a casserole to the potluck. And so you let him in the house, and everybody sits down to dinner, and everybody eats and eats, and the baby elephant just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you can't kick him out of the house, right? That's Zillow. He literally, right, the CEO gave that analogy, a crazy analogy, one I've never heard before. He gave that analogy in an interview when he talked about Zillow's strategy. He said that they were the baby elephant, and us, the realtors, right, the realtor community, invited them to dinner. And they brought a potluck. We invited them into our industry, and they came to the potluck, and they brought a casserole. They came and they brought us our own leads. That's all Zillow did, right? They brought us our own leads, and then they sold them back to us. And we let them sit at dinner and eat until now they're too big to get out of the game. And in 2018, right, in 2018, they launched Zillow Offers, and they started buying properties. Now, here we are, September 23rd, 2020, Zillow Offers will expand services in 2021 to simplify consumer transactions. Starting in January 2021, customers in Atlanta, Phoenix, and Tucson will sell homes through Zillow Offers to work directly with the trusted licensed employees of Zillow Homes, a licensed brokerage entity, right? A licensed brokerage entity. That's huge, right? Then you have down here, Zillow offer customers can already use Zillow affiliated mortgage, title, and escrow services through Zillow Home Loans and Zillow Closing Services, right? Delivering all Zillow offer related transaction services through a single coordinated platform is designed to help customers save time, reduce friction, and uncertainty. This is huge. Is Zillow has now come and said, we're expanding our Zillow offers platform. We already knew they had bought a mortgage company. We already knew that they had started using their own title and escrow services, their closing services, right, that they offer through their program. And now they said, guess what? We're gonna have you work with licensed employees of Zillow. We are a brokerage entity. We know we said in 2016, 2017, that we weren't gonna become a brokerage, that you didn't have anything to fear, but here we are, right? Here we are. We can see that in July, so we saw a little bit of a dip, right, in the pandemic of them purchasing. And what was something that I said very early on? I said, look, we're gonna see some of these tech companies are taking a step back. And yet, what do we know to be true? We know that the customers have become acclimated to virtual. They've become acclimated to working online. They've become acclimated to operating in a virtual space, right? They've learned it. They understand it. They accept it. And I said, these tech companies are going to come back with a vengeance. Well, they started in July buying homes again in Los Angeles, Riverside, Minneapolis, Cincinnati, Orlando, right? Right in our homes. They had paused for a little bit, and now they're back, right? And now they're back as of July, right? As of July. This is huge for our market. So actually, this property here, right, that I'm showing you guys, Roanoke Street in Temecula, this property is actually a Zillow property, right? This is a Zillow property. So I want to show you some of the supplemental agreements that are with this particular property. So there's some additional documents that are noted, a couple that I think are really important right here, so that I kind of highlighted, right? This one here, please include the RPA, current proof of funds, and lender pre-qual letter approval, PDF only. Home inspection contingency to be 10 days or less. Appraisal contingency to be 14 days or less. Loan contingency, 21 days or less. Here's the thing that I want you guys to listen to is this next part. The buyer has 10 days or less per the contingency period to complete their home inspections before their inspection contingency will be waived per the terms and conditions addendum that the buyer signed with their offer, unless buyer timely cancels the agreement and delivers an NSP on or before the contingency deadline. This also includes the appraisal and loan contingency dates. These will likewise be waived on their respective dates per the terms and conditions unless buyer timely cancels agreement, delivers NSP on or before the applicable contingency deadline. In order for you to protect your client, please be sure any request for repairs is timely issued. This is huge, right? This is huge. What does that mean? That means that we have literally built into these Zillow offers, built into this agreement, an automatic contingency waiver. There is an automatic contingency waiver built into their terms and conditions, meaning that they no longer need, what do we have when we do a residential purchase agreement, right? What happens? Well, we have to actively, by signing a contingency waiver, waive the contingencies, because the purchase agreement that we work through with the California Association of Realtors has built-in protection for the buyer, right? Built-in consumer protection for the buyer. That's not the case here, right? That's not the case here. This is, it's also gonna note, some examples around the residential, request for repairs, right? And then here we go into the actual sample document. So here is the next piece. They have their own contract, right? This is their sample contract. Well, what happens? We've learned, right, to utilize contracts as they exist with the California Association of Realtor. And here they have their own, right? They have their own that's built in, that strikes certain sections, is hereby stricken in its entirety, right? This is a big piece. This is their addendum here that is making, you know, different changes. They also have built in, right? This is their affiliated business arrangement disclosure, Zillow home loans, and Zillow closing services. So all of this is going to be really important. They're also going to have their Q&A. So I'm going to be posting this for you guys because I think that this is important for us to take a look at, right, on what they're looking at. So here's the other thing. I have a question about a Zillow and home. Who can help me with that? Contact our buyer success team, right? Contact our buyer success team. I want to make an offer. How do I do that? Through your buyer's agent or by contacting our buyer success team. Why is this important? Is because already they're looking at what is the methodology, or what are the ways that they can begin getting the clients to be comfortable with working exclusively through Zillow. I guarantee that if a client goes in and they're looking at Zillow, Zillow home loans, right, and they apply to Zillow home loans, they're probably going to be contacted by a Zillow agent from the buyer success team, right? That's probably how it's going to work, because in reality, what happens if Zillow can maintain, right? If Zillow can maintain the representation on both sides of the transaction, what do they control? The data. Data is the new oil, right? Data is the new oil. You just saw me post an article that says they're losing millions. They're losing millions on the actual sale. In fact, I have seen properties that Zillow has purchased and then relisted or sold, right, that they've taken a loss on. Why? Because the data is important. Because right now, sure, a little bit of commission on it, okay, that's part of it. And in reality, where Zillow is making their money is one, on being able to manage the entire transaction. They're making their money on selling leads back to the agents, right? They're making money on selling leads back to the agents. And yet we know that as of I believe it was towards the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, Zillow was already saying they were running out of zip codes, right? Being able to sell leads back to the agents, or being able to sell zip code and sell leads back to the agents, that was no longer a profit center for them, right? It was no longer a profit center for them because zip codes are finite. They ran out of ways to make money there. And they said, great. We tapped out. We made the maximum that we're going to make on the agents by selling them a zip code. What can we sell them next? Or now that the consumers are used to working our site, how can we work with the consumers now? How can we increase our profitability, right? How can we increase our profitability? So that's huge, right? This is huge what's happening as it relates to Zillow. I will post the address of this property if you want to take a look at the supplemental documents as well. I'll post that in because I think it's important to take a look at. I'm going to post the Zillow offer with their sample terms and conditions, so the purchase agreement as well as the buyer FAQ, right? I'm going to post this and share it as well because it's more important now than it has ever been to make sure you are educating your clients on what's going on. This agreement literally has built-in contingency waivers, right? Built-in contingency waivers. That puts your client in a very difficult position, right? That puts your client in a difficult position. And so we want to make sure, especially if you end up on the other side of a Zillow transaction, right? Or if you're going head to head with somebody on a Zillow offers, component, because Zillow offers is here in Los Angeles, right? Absolutely is. Then we want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date data, that you understand what's happening in the market right now so that you can best protect your clients, right? So that you can best protect the consumer. This is huge. So I'm going to share this with you. I wanted to share that today with you all. I think it's that important. And one of the quotes that always comes to mind for me when we talk about things like this is why it's so important to use our database, because we cannot use yesterday's tools, right? We cannot use yesterday's tools in today's market and expect to be in business tomorrow. The industry has changed. There are new things that are coming out every single day. That's why Command, right? That's why Command is here and truly available for you as a tool to make you that tech-enabled agent that can compete against the likes of Zillow, right? And cuts Zillow out of the transaction so that you can best protect your client. So that's all for today. A lot of information, you guys. But thank you for kind of, spending a little bit of time talking about what's going on. I'll post these documents as well. And if there's any questions that come up, please shoot me a message. I am happy to talk with you more about what's happening right now in the industry. And I'm going to continue to be sharing, industry news about what's happening with these technology companies and how that's going to impact you in your business. With that, I hope you guys have an